Welcome back to another exciting episode of Nerds Day Out. I am your host, Jaquack, and my co-host.
Hollywood swinging. What's up?
So extra. And today we're kind of get back in our usual rotation, or I wouldn't say usual rotation. We don't really have a usual rotation, I guess, at this point. But we're talking about comic books today, or at least what we've been reading. I'm gonna I'm gonna be honest. I unfortunately only read 2.5 comic books. I read Venom, Titans, and I kind of started reading Rebirth. It was more of a refresher because I think I had already read that issue. But I'm pretty sure we only talked about the first 5 issues of Rebirth, so we can talk on that a little, I guess. And you, sir, what have you read this week?
I won't say this week because we haven't really talked. Like you said, we hadn't talked comic books in a while. So over the past few weeks or so, um, after the Sabrina, I did read like the first, I want to say 5 issues of Ironheart, which have just been sitting around collecting dust for me. As much as I love Riri, so I finally got caught up. Well, I don't think I'm caught up, but I finally read what I currently have purchased for her. I gotta go by the shop Friday when I get paid and go ahead and empty that box out. Um, I also read. What did I read? Oh, I read the Spider-Man thing. Did I talk that already?
I don't think so.
I read the Spider-Man, I can't remember his Life of Peter Parker or something like that. The one where they break the comic books up based on decades for when he's been alive. So like each comic book is a different era or decade in Peter Parker's life, but it's all congruent. So like they take the biggest moments in the comic books and they discuss them as a time period in Peter Parker's life on which he consistently ages. So it starts in like the 60s or 70s or whatever, and it works its way up to current time. So pretty much each comic book is a 10 year period of Peter Parker's life, and that's pretty dope. I think that the last one got released, and I gotta go pick that up from the comic book shop. So I'll be finishing that up soon, and I started X Force, which I got like I got like the first 10 copies of that joint, and I just read like issue number 1 or 2 or whatever the other day, like, but it's pretty fire. So I just took it off my pull list, might mess around and put it back on, or I might just get it digital instead of putting it back on my physical list.
So, for those of you that don't know me and don't know my facial expressions, the look that I just gave him was, why are you jumping down that rabbit hole again?
Because I'm probably gonna jump down this other X hole.
Hey-oh.
Yeah, something about Powers of X and House of X and something else X. It's like essentially they rebooted X-Men. Is kind of what's going on here. And I've heard that like it's pretty fire and it goes like everybody who I've talked to about it said they're completely surprised and they don't know what's gonna happen next, which I think is good because I think X-Men kind of was falling down that predictability and also like overwhelming. It's predictability, and then like we discussed some episodes ago, you got like 9 X titles, and it's a deep rabbit hole. So hopefully, because I would like to still read X-Men, I don't want to just completely dismiss X-Men because I always loved X-Men as a kid coming up. Um, So hopefully that'll get me back into it. But the X Force one was pretty good. If I continue, it'll probably be in volumes on Comixology because that'll be cheaper and save more space for me. I
Um,
also was reading Legion Quest last night, which is like a combination of certain storylines from X-Men that leads up to this story about Legion, which I read like years ago, and I can't really give you the rundown on it because it's been that long since I read it, so it's like a refresher for me.
Understandable. But really quickly, I did want to touch on this because I see it all over social media, and not to like dismiss it, but y'all know Aqualad has been gay for a while, right?
You talking about the kiss or whatever?
Yeah, like not to dismiss it, but kudos to them for bringing that from comic book to the Young Justice series. But y'all know he's been gay for a while, right? Like,
Well, that's the thing. I don't think a lot of people follow that or follow Aqualad like that, so they don't know. And I think that's people's biggest thing right now. They feel like it's being forced instead
it's
of
not
genuine.
forced. It
So
was legitimately in the comic book. To those who are offended by it, go pick up Teen Titans number 1 through 10, and I guarantee you, within the first 5 issues, you'll realize that he's gay. And I'm talking about current Rebirth series, but also if you're looking for another gay hero, go look up Bunker from New 52 Teen Titans. I mean, they're not comic books don't just dismiss gay heroes. They acknowledge that they're there. And I will say this, that comic books do take a moment to recognize current events. So, I mean, if you're listening to this and you're interested in some gay or whatever heroes, let me know, and I'll be more than happy to like look them up and find them for you and pull comic books so that you can go read them.
I mean, like I said, it's just I guess they're wanting genuineness to it. Like in the current run, well, not current, I guess now, but I think it was X-Men Blue when they had the X-Men Blue Gold thing and all that stuff that led into it. They pretty much had like Bobby Drake had his like awakening during that period. Like he always felt like he was weird or whatever, but like he came to the realization of that's who he was, how he was, or whatever. So they've definitely been expanding out on it. If that's just your type of thing, and you want to read something that is like you said, like heavily about that, and is not afraid to to go straight at that, there are certain suggestions. I personally would suggest America. I don't know if she still has any currents going though. It's a character from Marvel named America Chavez. If you're not familiar with her, look her up. I don't know how to say it without sounding like I'm being funny about it, but she's written by a lesbian author, so it's like heavily in that perspective. And the character herself is a lesbian, and her parents were lesbians, and she come from like a lesbian planet or something. It gets
It gets weird, apparently.
Yeah, it starts to feel a little convoluted, but I mean, I guess I get what they're going for.
I mean, it is what it is. I mean, some of my best friends are gay, and I fully support y'all. Not to knock anything, but definitely check those out. I mean, if you feel like that's forced, just go read the comic book, and I guarantee you'll feel a little bit better about it. But back on what we came here to discuss. This Venom issue number 13 is lit, brah. That look. The look he just gave me. I feel like I shouldn't talk about this.
I mean, go ahead. I don't think I read 13 yet. I'm
Um,
behind. I'm way behind on Venom.
I mean, I'm behind too, but I'm more current than you are.
I mean, I'm reading these other volumes and collections and whatnot, and especially like older stuff. Like I'm jumping around, bro. No lie. I started. What did I start? I started Spider Verse, and then I jumped out of Spider Verse, and then I went to the Clone Saga, and then I jumped out of the Clone Saga, and I started Legion Quest, and then I read the Sabrina. So I like been kind of like jumping around. I guess as though to not tire myself out on what I'm reading.
I
So
mean, I get you, but like for me, my jump around, I want to fully catch up on Venom, and then my jump around is gonna start in DC because apparently I missed like the source wall collapsing. And for those of you who are familiar with the source wall or familiar with anything in DC, basically the source wall surrounds their universe. It's what like feeds energy into their universe, and I'm sure a lot of it had to do with Green Lantern, because a lot of it deals with like new gods and the Green Lantern Corps and all of that very heavily when it comes to the source wall. So expect me to talk about Green Lantern more in the coming weeks, or everything DC probably.
wait, is that in the current Green Lantern?
Yeah.
Okay, I gotta go back to that. I kind of died off on that.
Not no. You're thinking the Grant Morrison Green Lantern.
Yeah, it's not in the Grant Morrison Green Lantern.
It probably won't be.
Okay.
Which I died off on that too. I'm probably gonna go back and read it. It was a limited run series.
It's still going.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think it's finished yet.
Okay. So that's
but it
definitely
will
on my
probably
list.
Finish before Doomsday Clock.
That's definitely on my list of things to read. But in Venom, you start the War of the Realms, and it's post Eddie finding out that what's his kid's name? Dylan is his son. That's his name, right?
Yep.
And basically, long story short, Eddie has to find a safe house for him. And instead of taking him to some random house or some random shack that Eddie knows about, he decides to take him to Rex's hideout. And basically, I guess to put it bluntly, that's probably the safest place that he could think of at the time. So instead of just dropping him off and praying that he's okay, he takes him there. Along the way, he's like still reeling in his mind from like what happened with his symbiote, his other. And long story short, he gets there, he leaves Dylan alone because he's like, well, I'm a hero, I gotta go save people. And it's completely different from like the Eddie Brock. If you haven't read anything Venom or anything remotely close to Eddie Brock being anti-hero, it's completely different from like what you expect if you've only known Eddie from Spider-Man, because the Eddie Brock we meet in Spider-Man is total tool. At the end of the day, he only looked out for himself, only cared about himself. But he goes out and he's like, okay, well, I gotta go save people. And actually, along the way, he gets attacked, him and his son. And he's bleeding, but he's still, once again, I gotta go save people. And he comes across like this elf, wizard, witch thing, and she gives him a stone. And it basically gives him powers.
You are now one of the Lords of the Rings.
But the powers that it manifests is basically based on what you can imagine. And because he's had such a bond with
So she gave him a
Venom?
lantern ring?
It's a crystal. It's a crystal.
Is it a Shi'ar crystal?
I mean, it's a crystal. So, like, what he imagines is basically a Venom suit. But, like, it's
right,
this
because
wicked
in
Venom suit.
issue 12, we know the Venom suit went dolo. It pulled a Rex.
Right. but it's a full it's like a Venom suit without a symbiote. And like as he's trying to save people, the witch tried to make him a deal. Basically, you get all this power, but you have to work for me and work towards the goals of Malekith, and I'm butchering that name. I don't feel like looking it up. Anyway, it's mentioned in issue 13. But basically, Eddie's like, nah, fam, you gave me this suit. I ain't gonna help you, though.
Appreciate it.
Basically, sends the witch packing. And the witch goes and finds the jack-o'-lantern. Is that the villain name?
The one with a pumpkin head?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And long story short, gives another crystal to jack-o'-lantern. And jack-o'-lantern has to now work for her. And basically, he does what Eddie does, but instead of like having to create a full suit because he's already in a suit, he just uses that magic to supercharge his own suit. So he's flying around terrorizing the city, and he's like cloning himself and stuff, and it's pretty cool. I don't want to spoil a whole lot of it for my buddy here, Hollywood, because I do want him to read it and enjoy it. But basically, they go back and forth. It's pretty epic. I'm at issue number 15 and still going. It's definitely one of those segments of Venom where I can just like binge read it and keep going and not think about stopping. The second thing I read was Titans, and in Titans, this is post breakup and split of the original team. Mind you, this isn't like Teen Titans, the show with Cyborg and Starfire and everybody else. It's Dick Grayson as Nightwing, Steel, a female Steel, Megan, the Martian, Donna Troy, Raven, and Beast Boy. But because the source wall has collapsed, random people are getting powers. So like they're generating new metahumans, and Beast Boy no longer transforms into a beast or animals, as far as I can tell. Beast Boy has like this weird mutation that happened with him, where like he's just a monster like all the time unless he focuses and goes back to his human form.
You know the theory of what's on the other side of the source wall?
What?
Marvel.
Unfortunately, it's not Marvel. Although that would be interesting.
No, that's the theory, that what's on the other side of the source
Yeah,
wall
but it collapsed.
They've done like bits about the source wall and who goes over to the other side or whatever, and they kind of make reference that it's like the other comic universe on the other side of it.
But like, I mean, like I can delve into this source wall conversation for what I know, because they did touch on it before in the Green Lantern issues that I did read up till now. Basically, there's a limited supply of like color energy in the universe where the Green Lanterns draw their power. So like it's weird. And basically like the willpower that they draw their powers from, there's a finite amount of it. It's not infinite. But when basically where I'm at is post source wall collapse, and you have like the issue that I read, Random person gets powers. It's like electrical, and the another person gets powers, and basically, I don't know why they both simultaneously got powers, or what happened to cause one person to get powers and then the other person like transform into this weird beast thing. But long story short, the person that got powers, it was basically Static Shock. It was electrical base, and he basically killed the other thing person. Basically, it proved to everyone else that just because you have a team of diverse superpowers doesn't mean you can fight everything. Because nothing was effective against this creature that they came across. So it was just like, oh, what can we do? And then the guy that they cuffed in dampening cuffs burns through them somehow. I don't know. And kills the guy. And of course, Dick Grayson being trained by Batman is like, oh, well, he's fussing at Megan because she left her post. She was supposed to stay in the tower. And he's like, next time, no one needs to die. Of course, that's the Bruce Wayne coming out of him. But it's pretty interesting. If you haven't read any Titans or Teen Titans or anything from DC, definitely go read Titans if you are a fan of the show, because it'll kind of change your perspective of what originally should have been versus show. Because you get Donna Troy, Garth, the original Aqualad, Wally West, which I really need to figure out what happened to Wally. Side note, I'm mad they killed, air quotes, Tim Drake and then brought him back. But I have not seen hide nor hair from Wally West. If y'all really kill Wally West, I'm going to be real upset with y'all, DC. Hear me now. But on to Rebirth. From what I've seen on Rebirth, I'm at issue number 11. You were at issue number 5, right?
Of Rebirth?
Yeah.
I don't even know if I started that.
It was the comic book of the month way back when. You started it. You got to issue number 5 at least.
Of Rebirth?
Yeah.
If you say so.
But, refresher. Rebirth is basically where everybody within like a 20-mile or city-wide radius came back to life. And basically where I'm at, basically the little sister of the cop, she is undead, dead thing. And she shows up to save her little nephew. And everybody
Revival.
Yes, Revival, not Rebirth. Holy crap.
I was like, bro, Rebirth is DC, and I barely read DC. If you say so.
My bad. I'm a little confused and burnt out today.
Yeah, you're right. I got to issue 5 of Revival. I don't think I got very much further than that.
Yeah, but
I haven't
like
gone back to it. I need to go back to it.
yeah. But they're like harvesting body parts and whatnot.
That doesn't
And
sound dangerous.
from the people who were revived, and
That really doesn't sound dangerous.
not at all. Well, I mean, you got to think on the black market, these things are gonna go for
body part. I don't know the prices of undead body parts, bro. Not quite sure what the going rate for an undead kidney is.
But could you imagine, my dude, this is a kidney from someone who was revived.
I mean, who they gonna sell it to? Somebody in the city?
Nah, they're trying to work out like the logistics of how to ship it out.
I'm about to say, ain't they under quarantine?
Yeah. But I mean, long story short, her sister shows up, kills one guy, Other guy comes out, gun to nephew's head, and I don't. Did you see the little spirit thing floating around?
No.
All right, I'm gonna show you an image real quick.
Oh yeah. But that was where we were at, though, wasn't it?
No, that's where I was. You hadn't made it that far. But that comes up and saves the undead chick from being capped, and she kills the other guy. I mean, it was two guys trying to harvest body parts in a shed that how do I describe this? The baby daddy was renting. It's a little weird, man. Like, you think about it, you're gonna rent a shed.
I mean, maybe you don't need a full house, bro. I don't know what to tell you. Where
And
are
then,
the
like,
tweezers?
Huh? And then, like, the spirit comes up and he, like, it was weird because, like, they were hacking up this guy, but he's still alive. So, like, I guess, like, harvesting body parts out of him and he's still, kicking it. And the spirit comes up and he, like, I guess eats the rest of him and he burns him away. It was really weird. I really need to hop back into this one. Probably within the next week or two. Once I catch up on Venom, I think I'm going to be reading this and hopping back and forth into DC.
He's going to be reading Revival, not Rebirth. Revival.
Did I say Rebirth again?
No, you didn't.
Okay.
I just felt the need to. And if in case you're wondering what all this bubbling noise is, he decided we should smoke hookah while doing this.
I mean, why not? This is a chill podcast, right, guys?
I'm probably going to go back and read Hush since Hush is now on Plex.
I saw that. Were you watching it earlier?
I was attempting to.
Because I was about to kick you off to watch it.
Rude ass nigga.
It's cool. There's other things for me to watch. Like Endgame for the second time. But that wraps it up for me. Side note, I did get into a bit of a discussion with somebody about why, who is the best Robin. And in my opinion, Tim Drake was hands down the best Robin. Dick Grayson is more like Bruce. Jason Todd is more badass. And Damian Wayne is probably the loose cannon. If I had to like label them. But future Tim Drake, if you haven't read Bat Family or what's Detective Comics, and you haven't seen future Tim Drake come in and wreck shop, bruh, that is definitely an issue to go read. And I'm gonna go find it just so I can pass that along to you. And I'll drop an issue number in the description down below.
So you just gonna completely dismiss old girl, huh?
Stephanie Brown?
She just don't count as Robin to you, huh?
Bruh, she was a Robin for like one issue.
It don't matter. All Robin's lives matter.
All Robin lives matter. What about Signal?
Signal technically isn't a Robin. He's a Signal.
No. He wore a Robin outfit for like a millisecond.
When?
During War of Robins.
I didn't read that.
I'm pretty sure that was him.
He's a Negro. He don't count.
Bruh, all Robins matter. What about the other chick with the glasses? You're going to forget her too?
That's what I was talking about.
That's not Stephanie Brown.
Stephanie Brown is the one with them yellow glasses, right?
Nope. Stephanie was Tim Drake's girlfriend.
Okay, well then who's the one with the glasses? Because that's what I was talking about.
Hold on. Go ahead and talk about whatever you read.
Nothing. You only see air.
That's Stephanie Brown. She's blonde. God dang it.
Nah, you know I was talking about the redhead joint with the glasses.
That's
The Frank Miller Robin.
Stephanie Brown. Carrie?
There you go.
Carrie Kelly? They don't really dive into her, though.
All Robin's lives matter.
Like, how long was she a Robin until they rebooted?
Pretty much like that Frank Miller run.
I mean, I guess she was more of a Robin than Stephanie. No offense to my Stephanie fans. But, I mean, it is what it is. I think,
So are you qualifying that by what they did as a Robin or what they did later as well?
both.
I mean, you already know who my favorite Robin is if I got to
Jason
pick a
Todd.
Robin. So,
I mean, he's my favorite too. But, you know, when it comes down to it, Tim Drake definitely was probably the best Robin for Bruce.
that's the one that became Red Robin, right?
Yeah. Which he never called himself just Robin. He was always Red Robin. Also, side note, for those people that say Bruce Wayne is the smartest person in DC, I'd like to call your attention to when Bruce said that Tim is smarter than him.
Don't nobody give no damns about that. That's the bat being humble.
Right.
Be humble. Sit down. And also, that's kind of blown out the water when he became the god of knowledge.
Normal Batman.
Nah, don't be trying to qualify it now.
When you boil it down, Tim Drake is probably the most fitting to don the Batman outfit after everything is said and done.
Dick said he begs to differ.
Dick.
Azrael
Grayson-
also says he begs to differ.
Who?
Azrael.
This can turn into a really deep conversation really quickly. But long story short, if you read Bat Family, not Bat Family, Detective Comics, where
Batman and the Boys.
basically, where Tim dies and comes back, and that whole sequence, you'll realize why Tim's probably the best pick to be a Batman. Because they, him and future Tim and Tim have a conversation about basically where the other Robins ended up. Damian's too bloodthirsty. Jason would never. And Grayson just, he's stuck in being Bruce's shadow, but deep down he doesn't want to be. If that makes sense.
Nah, bro, he just wants to clap Bab's cheeks and kick a bad guy's tail every now and then. Mostly clap Bab's cheeks.
And Starfire's.
Double cheek clappage.
Which also, you need to read Red Hood from New 52.
Yeah. I'll put it on the list.
Well, I read all of that. I need to start Rebirth Red Hood. Well, Red Hood and the Outlaws.
I'll put it on the list.
I'm gonna pull the specific comic books for you to read, where they go into like the Joker stuff for Red Hood. It's pretty interesting. Long story short, Joker has more of a chess game than we give him credit for.
Then you give him credit for.
Than a lot of people give him credit for.
I already know the Joker's chess game is immaculate.
Long story short, he set up for Jason to become a Robin.
Sounds about right.
The floor is yours, sir.
I didn't read anything. Nothing. Nothing. You only see air. Um, I read. I mean, I got. What did I say earlier? I read issue 1 of X Force, which, like I said, was a long time coming after being on my pull list for like 12 issues in, and I removed it because I hadn't been reading it. This kind of picks up where Extermination left off. Did you read that? That was the arc where basically this guy named Ahab came back from the future to try and kill one of the original X-Men. It didn't matter who, just one of the original X-Men, because as long as he killed one of the original X-Men, it would basically wipe out all of mutant kind in the future. Like, without the X-Men, I guess apparently there's no foot for mutant kind to stand on, and they get wiped out early on. So that's pretty much what was going there. In that arc, big spoiler. In that arc,
Why not just kill Charles?
It doesn't matter. Just kill a X-Man. It doesn't matter.
I mean, Charles, hands down, gets the ball rolling. Yeah,
but you have to kill past Charles. He didn't go that far back. He went to that present where you had the past X-Men palling around with their future selves like it was okay, like they were supposed to be there. So everything that they were supposed to be... Basically, if you killed them then, because they went before they actually became the X-Men that you know of and went through the things that they went through. So if you killed them then you effectively stop them from being able to go back to the past and live the life that led to the X-Men being the saviors that they are, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you say just kill Professor X, like that's just like the easiest thing in the world to do. Professor X is an Omega level telepath.
I thought it was Alpha level.
No, he's Omega.
Oh.
So it's not exactly,
Yeah, I mean, I guess if that's the case, then just kill Scott.
Right. So you go back and you're trying to kill the teenage X-Men. So it's one of them, or whatever. What happens in this though, like, is you end up with the Time Cop himself, Cable, trying to prevent these things from happening. But it gets kind of weird because essentially what happens is young Cable comes back and kills old Cable because old Cable was pretty much like allowing them to do what they were doing and ignoring that it was for the good of mankind to send them back or whatever. However he explained it. So basically, young Cable kills old Cable. And in that instance, now you have a Cable reboot. Because the Cable that you know and love, the big old crotchety dude, now no longer exists. And you've got this like 19, 20-year-old version of Cable. So where X-Force picks up at is that version of Cable is now teamed with Shatterstar and Warpath and Domino, forming up the X-Force. And the first issue is just kind of like a lot of blood and guts and gunfight. You get like a little brief outline of what's kind of going on. Apparently somebody else came back from the future as well and is selling future tech to like third world countries to like elevate their military and economy in the next level. So I'm gonna look at a little bit more into that because it was pretty interesting, and I think I got like at least the first like 4 issues at the house, so I might as well at least read them. I paid for them, might as well at least read them, right?
Yeah.
Then I read the first 5 issues of Ironheart, which I thought I discussed, but I guess I didn't. I read the first 5 issues of Ironheart, which essentially you're following her path now from where it left off with the Tony Stark arc or whatever. She's at MIT and she's trying to create, her own AI now to go with her suit and all that stuff like that. So she's trying to, separate herself.
Tony.
No, actually, she ends up accidentally, of course, right? She's trying to create herself a perfect AI. What she ends up accidentally doing is essentially programming her thoughts and memories into the AI and creating an AI that is basically her best friend that got killed in that drive-by. So there's that. Um, she's got the digital rendition of that. She hears about some stuff going on in the Pentagon, or not the Pentagon, one of the White House, not White House, but DC houses or whatever. She goes to save the day, and then she gets introduced to the concept of the Ten Rings. For those who don't know about the Ten Rings are a
Global mafia.
super duper secret terrorist cell, you could kind of say.
It's
Like
the eye.
it's the Illuminati
That.
of
Marvel.
the Marvel universe. Like, these dudes got their hand in everything. They can alter anything, and nobody knows who the what they are, where the what they are, or if they even did anything to begin with. So she gets that clue dropped on her, and she runs into another guy, which is pretty cool. Who's pretty cool. He whoops her butt. I don't want to give too much away. He whoops her butt, and he talks to her about the Ten Rings, and actually tries to recruit her to join the Ten Rings. She denies. Of course, she declines that. Figures out a way to beat him. Saves a friend of hers, which was like an older girl who helped her through high school, because of course Riri is super smart. So that means that her freshman year of high school, she was like 10, so she needed somebody to watch her back. So she saves her, and she's going through all this stuff with MIT, and it's kind of essentially like, hey, MIT won't let her be her, and they keep bringing all these donors or whatever into her lab. They're encroaching her space. Oh, you're here because we give you money to do this, that, and third, because you're here to draw more money, basically. You're here to attract these people and draw us more money, and we don't care about your privacy. And somebody messed with a gadget and pretty much blew a hole in the side of the lab, and they're like, well, what's this? She's like, well, this is why I said don't touch my you're just coming up in here and you're touching ish, and you don't know what this ish is, and you could have blew your face off. So it's basically the whole series so far is her finding herself as a hero. They talk about how she was teamed with the champions, but that didn't work out for her. So, and she just try to be her own thing, do her own thing, and find her own path, her own way. But she's also slowly learning to accept the fact that she can't really do it all herself, and occasionally you need help. So the first 5 issues was pretty cool. I know I got some more in my pull box, so I'm gonna continue with Riri because I enjoy what they're doing with her as a young urban character and bringing up a lot of those issues. They don't disregard the fact she dealt with a corrupted mayor who was basically using the kids to steal from people, the poor downtrodden kids in the city, using them to steal from people so that he could instill fear in the citizens so they would vote for him, while he talks about increasing whatever kind of police patrol or blah, 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 blah. So.
Well, he's slowly not doing it.
Right. I read Venom. You discussed Venom. I started Legion Quest. Again, like I said, that's an older, you probably haven't gone back and read much, outside of the early 2000s.
No.
So this is a 90s series that, happened. And I'm enjoying it, but I'm also being reminded by going back and reading this how much more dialogue were in the comic books back in the 90s. Here's a page, for example.
I see.
So you got like dialogue, and you got mental thoughts, and then you got like narrator bubbles. So I'm remembering now how much like actual dialogue you had in
Right,
comics then,
parents? Comic books aren't just for pictures.
and also like the stark difference in art quality. It doesn't take away from the story. It's still a good story, and
I
certain
wouldn't
things.
say art quality. I would say art styling.
Yeah, yeah. I guess that's probably a better way to say it. The
'Cause
styling is drastically different. You also had a different median and what you could use, different kind of
Right.
materials, all that kind of stuff like that. So
Because I mean now
newer
you have,
techniques, and you have techniques of drawing and painting and whatever now that you
Right.
didn't have then. So
and like now you have like digital drawing that people do.
right, but it's definitely a good story. It's like overarcs a lot of the X-Men stuff. Like I said, this is that stuff that I used to like to read back in the day. Um,
This is that stuff you wouldn't let me touch growing up.
hey man, it be like that.
I love
But
my
you can
big
read it
brother.
now. It's digital.
Oh, now I can read it.
It's digital. Have
God
at it.
forbid I had gotten my snotty little mitts on his comic books back in the day.
You already know.
And it's funny because like I was that little brother that came over and stole his stuff.
Also, like I said, I was reading Spider-Man Life Story, which, as I said before, is an interesting concept because essentially what they do is they take the life of Spider-Man and they start. Let's see, where did it start? It started in the '60s. So they took it and they started in the '60s. They kind of just already acknowledged that he was Spider-Man or whatever, blah, blah, blah.
No backstory. Don't need that.
No, you don't need all that. So they don't give you Uncle Ben's death and all that. It's already there. You already know.
I do
You've
have a
read
question.
Spider-Man for years.
So like Spider-Man, once they get to present, is he like old man?
Yeah, he's aging the whole time. So it's not like, oh, young man Spider-Man. No. Like, the '60s Spider-Man, pretty much, he's like 18. Like, they're like pretty much fresh out of high school, maybe like a year or two into college. So like 18, 20, somewhere around there.
Right.
So
And what about his villains? Like,
they handle them completely different too. So at this point, when you start off, the first villain he comes into contact with is the Goblin,
Green
and
Goblin?
he meets him in the bar or whatever, and he lets him know that he knows his identity, who he is, blah blah blah. They have a fight, and then like it's wild because he kind of like knocks the Goblin out of Harry Osborn or Norman Osborn.
Norman.
He pretty much like knocks the Goblin out of Norman Osborn, like, because the Goblin was always supposed to be like a split personality thing
Right.
for him. So he pretty much like makes him bang his head or whatever, like knocks the Goblin out of him. So he doesn't remember any of this. He doesn't remember who Peter is, or whatever. So he's like, well, do I take the chance of just letting him go and let it slide, or what to try and preserve my identity? So basically, he sends Norman Osborn to jail. Even though he doesn't remember who he is and he doesn't remember doing all of the Goblin stuff or whatever, he sends Norman Osborn to jail. And during this also, he was fighting back and forth with whether or not he should go off to join the war. Like, I have these powers, I have these responsibilities. Do I go off and join the war? Because during that time was the Vietnam War, in which Flash was joining the army and going into the war. Into the war.
So you get like Venom Flash?
No. Flash dies in Nam. Spoiler.
Damn.
But you also see like it gets weird. He some of them you don't see him battle with, but he discusses how he used to battle with them. So like Doc Ock kind of turns around, and he's no longer like battling against Doc Ock, and they're working together at the same lab. They pretty much like jump through a lot of stuff. They jump through the Clone Saga. They discuss his relationship with Gwen, And they also like go over Mary Jane and how he ended up with Mary Jane, all that. So like they take it and they make a life and they fill in like if this would have happened and it just been a straight line, how might these events have played out? And I don't really know how to tell you too much of what they do with it without spoiling it for you. You should definitely read it. Even if you haven't gone back and read all of Spider-Man, I mean, if you have like a general consensus of the types of things that happened to him and that he went through, it'll be interesting to you to see how they folded everything out. But you also compress certain stuff into like a small form. So like the Clone Saga, which was like 12 books or something like that, you can kind of compressed into one book of an explanation of why these things happen, how these things would have happened in a certain pattern, blah 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 blah. And it gets where I'm at now. They were like right at the Spider-Verse. So yeah, in the 2000s, I think I was in the 2000s, and it was like Spider-Verse. So, and I think there's one more issue of it left. But other than that, I mean, that's pretty much all I've read. I've got a lot of stuff that I'm going back and reading, and then a lot of stuff that I'm trying to complete. Some stuff that like caught my eye, like I'm gonna start Archie Afterlife, which caught my eye.
Which one is that?
The one where Jughead
Jughead
becomes a zombie.
All right, cool. I started that. For those who don't know, our lists are ever growing and are constantly being updated, constantly not getting things crossed off. It's just the life of a nerd. So when we say that's on our list, it's legitimately on our list, and eventually we'll get to it. But like I said, there's a lot of things we want to read, but some things kind of fall off. Like I meant to read Revival a lot sooner than I'm planning on going back to it.
Yeah, I mean, I won't even start on my list. My list is ridiculous. I think I've only crossed like 2 things off of it.
And I mean, it's easier to do like limited runs for us because that has an end. But like going back and reading something like Iron Man, I know I will never finish Iron Man. It's just the way it is. But side note, I will say this: since I've had my tablet, and you used to complain about me slacking on my reading, but I read a lot more now.
It makes it easier, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I told you. You was talking all that trash.
Nah. I don't recall talking trash.
Would you buy that big old thing just to read? Why don't you just read them on your laptop? No.
Well, for you had a laptop. I didn't.
Yeah, nobody want to sit with a big ass laptop in their lap.
I mean, it is what it is.
I can tablet that guy.
It is what it is.
Tablet that hoe.
It is what it is. But I mean, this was kind of a hodgepodge podcast. Like I said, we originally started this to talk about comics. I mean, it feels good to be able to talk about comics here and there when we want to. Not to take away from the things that we have been discussing. But next week, we're going to discuss The Boys. So be on the lookout for that. I will be posting for us to get guests, whoever wants to join in. And I will be doing a couple test runs this weekend to see if my means of doing a long distance guest will work out. And any closing thoughts, bro?
Nope.
Alright, so that's it. Peace out. Stay nerdy. Also, read them comic books. Because we aren't. I mean, we are, but we aren't. We're slacking.